Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Kalen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. How are you, Sam?
I'm doing pretty good, Kalen.
You sound a little different today.
I've got some craniofacial nerve damage that is keeping half my face pretty paralyzed right now.
Man, it's like a whole Botox treatment that you didn't know you needed.
It was free Botox. I highly recommend it.
Not.
No, it's great. It's no wrinkles in the forehead, tight skin. Yeah, no.
No expression, Sam.
I'm all expressive on the inside, Kalen, and right now it's I don't know what kind of expression it is. It's more like resigned to be okay with what's going on.
Well, you know what? It's maybe you had a few drinks before our show and you're
that's what it feels like. It feels, or like I just came back from the dentist too early to do a podcast.
Your face is still frozen.
But you should have seen me 2 weeks ago. Like I haven't been here in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know. This is the first time I've seen you.
It's like it was pretty bad, and I was pretty worried that it was going to be permanent.
Oh my goodness!
I had no idea what was going on. Well, I had an idea, but it was pretty interesting experience to go through to have something like that happen. You get really upset, like, oh no, oh my God, what's going on? And then I had to talk myself into being okay with it, really. And like not knowing if it was going to be permanent or temporary. I really had to think long term, like if this is how I am for the rest of my life, how am I going to do? And it took me a few days really of being really sad and morose and on the couch not doing anything. And but you know, it came to me that I'm going to be just great, no matter what, right? And
I mean, I think that's a good attitude. But it's interesting when you have sort of something outside your control. Mm-hmm. So you had a tooth removed that kind of went sideways.
Yeah, the tooth removed,
or had a bigger impact.
And I had a middle ear infection at the same time. And
oh my God.
Because the tooth was here and the middle ear is here, the craniofacial nerve comes out right in between them. So it was getting abused.
Well, now you're better, so you just need to heal.
Yeah, I need time, and I need to, just be cool with it for now. Be cool.
So our last time we did a podcast was 3 weeks ago, actually.
It was, yeah.
Right? Because you missed 2 weeks ago.
I didn't get Sean Sewell.
Week. No, you didn't get Sean Sewell. That was, so Sean Sewell was the co-host for that day. That was a really good podcast.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, he's... very knowledgeable, and I think it spoke a lot to how important systems are, and putting the work in, not only for your operation but also potential resale value and just management. It's easier to manage, which is good. So speaking of management, let's get into how has your adjustment been now since you closed your store or your operation at the museum. You're now back at the hillside.
Yeah, I got coffee all over my hands.
You're
right
there
now,
in the morning. I see your posts, but I think it's incredible. How's it going?
It's really good. I'm up early, so I love coming in and opening the store, and I love all the customers that I'm able to bring in early in the morning, and I love being behind the bar and making drinks again. And it's really... Well, when you have multiple stores and you're a small team like I am, it's really hard to see where all the gaps are.
Totally.
Right? And so now that I'm spending so much time in one place, I'm seeing all the holes. I'm seeing
all the nickels that have been falling through the cracks.
100%. And kind of, so I'm feeling grateful that I'm able to go in and put my own personality back into my cafe and techniques and how-tos. Like even the training was getting big holes in it
without
me being there all the time.
Which affects your sales and affects your overall business too, right? Yeah. So you got top line stuff that you can focus on, but then when you're catching all those little nickels, then the bottom line's better. So it's actually, a huge swing.
And it feels like I've been able to attack it from both sides, top end and bottom end. And it does feel like it's been a really big swing. We have our first full training tomorrow night at the cafe. Cool. First time in quite a while, and first time with this team actually. They're all pretty new. So I'm really looking forward to being able to just get right in there with my expectations about how I want things done.
Well, and your methodology and why, and the bigger picture of the hospitality component of it.
Absolutely, and where I'm coming from, why I started the business to begin with, and all those things that these new employees are going to learn tomorrow night. And I'm really so excited because I'll be able to watch them grow, and watch them learn good hand making coffee skills. Like making coffee by hand is something that not a lot of places do. There's so many tools and gadgets that make making coffee easier or more complex. I'm not sure. It depends who you talk to. I personally feel it makes it more complex, and there's more things that can go wrong. And when you don't have all those tools and technology, all of a sudden you don't really know how to make a coffee. But if you can make coffee really well by hand, you can go from any machine to any machine and still make really good coffee. And that's a skill that I see kind of slowly falling by the wayside with technology and new techniques, which are making good coffee. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't make good coffee. I'm just saying that I don't want my employees to be leaning on tools and technology when they don't even know how to make coffee by hand first.
The gap in knowledge of understanding of where came from and the way it was done and why you do it and what the important components are.
And the why.
The really why.
Important. Like I don't do it just because I think it's better. I do it because it comes from me, and this is how I learned to make coffee, and this is how I've grown up in coffee. And it may not be the best way, but it's my way, and it's the 2% jazz way. And so
you built a whole business on that methodology.
And so now I get to really reinstill that and really reinforce all those parameters. I'm gonna build my proverbial sandbox for my employees where they got their boundaries that they can work freely within. But these are the boundaries. And that seems something that I know I haven't been doing a great job on for quite a few years now, probably since COVID, when like teams separated. I've never gotten over it really. And this feels like it's a golden opportunity for me to get right back to what I love. Like I love my customers. I love making people coffee that I can see when they get it, they love it, and I can watch them drink it and get gratification from them. It's good.
Well, and I think the thing about it is when you're working in a business, especially for us, if you're multi-store, you're kind of you're putting out a lot of fires. And you feel like you're being productive and you're working, but you're not really in your business, and feeling connected to your business.
Right.
I know recently, I had this idea that I wanted to sort of reward staff, and I was trying to figure out how to do that. And I thought, well, why not, if you're with us for a year or 2 years, why not do a certificate of appreciation for the staff? So I got our design team to build out a certificate of appreciation. It's kind of like, it's a little cheesy, I guess, in some aspect, but so if you're with us for a year, you get $100. So on their year anniversary, I had to go back, and pretty much everybody that had been with us a year, I had to go, okay, so there was a lot of employees, which was actually encouraging. A year ago, I looked at what our turnover was, and 70% of our employees were under a year. And I thought, oh, that's not good.
No.
Obviously, we're in fast food and quick service, but we have benefits. We pay well, like all this stuff. So I was concerned. And then, so fast forward, I guess maybe that was 2 years ago. I looked it up. Fast forward, we hired a HR manager. So fast forward 2 years, and now 70% of our employees are over a year.
Wow. So that's a real turnaround.
Yeah, it was, and maybe not 70, but maybe it's like 60, but it was like almost switched around. So I wanted to do this incentive program a year ago, and I just, capacity, I never got to it. And then this fall, I just wanted to be in the stores more. I wanted to see, my staff and who's working there, and just have them tied, just like what you talk about you being tied to your staff and your customers and your business, and looking at those different things and the why, and also connecting your sort of vision with the execution part of it. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're out of the store, like I would always pop in the stores and do that stuff, but you get caught up in all these big projects that happen behind the scenes.
Yeah. And like you say, you're putting out all these, like putting out the fires at multiple stores, and that's good, but it's not the same thing as being in your business.
No,
right?
Being in it, and then you just see things that you may not have seen before, and for good and bad. Like going in these stores and talking to the staff, and I would always say hi, but having an actual conversation and explaining to them, the level of appreciation, and having that little sort of dialogue. Mm-hmm. And, I worked for this candy company back in the day, and I would have been probably like 19. And I came back from a day of work, and it was just a small operation. I was the only employee, or there's 2 employees. And my boss at the time, or he owned the company, said, Kaylin, I really appreciate what you're doing. And he handed me $100. And this is in 1992 or something, 1991. And I literally was blown away by that. Like it was a little bit about the money, but it was more just about the appreciation.
Yeah, the acknowledgement
and that. So that's what kind of gave me the idea to do that for my staff. And I wish, obviously, I'd love to give them more and all that stuff. But I think so what I've done is I came up with these certificates. So I have, and like I said, there was a huge chunk that, there's probably like 50 or 60 employees. So, I mean, some of them have been here longer. Like one employee's been here 8 years, right? So they're getting an 8-year certificate.
Oh, you're going back from day one?
Yeah, well, I'm going, okay, who's our employees and how long they've been here? So we have all that information, all that data. It's all in a spreadsheet. And then I set up tiers, like, so if you're, in the probation period, you're like bronze. And then as soon as you get past your probation, you're silver. And then in 1 year, you're gold. And 2 year, you're platinum, diamond plus, 7-star. So these different categories.
You're turning your employees into hotels.
Yes, exactly. Well, and I got the idea from Vegas. And I know for me, like I'm a diamond plus in Vegas, so I get 4 free drinks a day when I go to the Caesars resorts, and that loyalty kind of component of it is kind of what started me thinking of like, well, if we can reward, I wanted to reward my staff, but if I could tie it into something fun. So this is just the first step. So we built out the tiers. So it's like, the certificate is certificate of appreciation to the person. And this is a diamond reward for the person that had been there for 8 years, for example. Right. So there's no connection to the diamond yet, but this is the first step. So I handed $800 to this employee, and they were just like, what is going on here? So then I went, and there's an employee that's been there 3 years. So I have $300 to them and $100 to them and so forth. But I'm having that discussion. I'm going in the stores. I'm having actually, because of the schedules are all different, I'm having to actually show up in times that I probably wouldn't normally be at the store. So somebody starts work at 4:30 or something. So maybe I'm in there at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 5 o'clock when normally my day would be over by then.
Right.
But now I'm actually in the store. I'm have a point of actually having to go find this employee to give them the certificate. And it has to be when they're working, because some of the people may only work one shift a week.
Right.
but they've been with us for 2 years. So I want to make sure that they get appreciated as well. But what it's done for me is connected me to the business, the staff, and now I'm showing up in times that I normally wouldn't be there. So I'm seeing things differently.
Are you dropping fries though?
I'm not dropping fries.
Okay,
they don't want me.
They don't want me
anywhere near the stuff. And I think everybody needs to stay in their lane. My lane is kind of the rah high five kind of guy. And then but you see different things. And the one thing I've noticed is that the stores are doing fantastic. The team's fantastic. And through this process, because I've been in the stores like way more than I ever have been in the last kind of 3 weeks. So I'm not even done. And I've been doing this now almost 3 weeks. Wow. Because that's how long it takes to find the employee, because they're in Courtney, they're in Langford, they're in Vic West or Cook Street, or I miss them and the schedule says they're on there, but they switch shifts and I'm like, oh, okay, or they're sick or whatever. But I've gone in and the stores have been magnificent. The other thing that's happened this a couple times, yesterday in particular. So I go in and the customers or the staff members kind of on the tail. So I have to take them aside and I'm presenting this certificate. They're working. So there's customers milling around. And this woman kind of chased me down as I was kind of walking out of the store and just took the time to tell me how good a job Big Wheel's doing and how the staff are amazing and that they always smile. And she says, I've been to all the locations and I've been a regular customer as long as you've been around. And, I just want to let you know that your team is amazing. The store is amazing. The food's amazing and all that. And I was like, wow, if I hadn't gone and been there, like I don't get that opportunity to intersect with customers as much, right. But to hear that, but then also see my staff and then, see the joy, of what they're doing, the pride in what they're doing. And I'm like, well, you know what? I always think that, like, I'm proud of what we've done, but to see the staff and then to see a customer who's really happy, it just is reaffirming, right? So connecting in your business is so important.
When you have that reaffirmation, it drives you more too, and your customer.
Yes.
Or your employees, sorry. Like that engagement is, I don't know, it's very special.
It's so special. And it reminds you why you're doing what you're doing, especially in this competitive environment. And when you think of the economy and what's, I think is going to be happening in the future, the short-term future as far as, the economy and, financial success and all that stuff, like remembering and reminding yourself that what you're doing, it has purpose and that it is good. And also identifying areas that you need to tighten up, because we talk about the top line. And I think generally speaking, my top line is up. I think year over year, we're up 15%. Some of that is because there's a price increase as well. But I always look at, how many people, like how many customers we bring through year over year and the dollars. And then you can kind of take out, okay, what is the price increase difference there? And you can see whether you're ahead or behind. And our customers purchases or number of customers served is up. Our revenue is up and our bottom line is up a little bit. I mean, we're talking like there's only pennies left over, but it's still, it's solid. So you're moving in the right direction, which is encouraging in light of the fact that there's, we got tariff pressures, the cost of food is like skyrocketing.
It's not going down.
No, it's not going down.
Weird, huh?
No, but it's interesting because some of the data coming out with rents and those types of things have, the rental, I think there's like 12 months in a row, the rents have shown a decline. Like
in Victoria?
In Victoria,
okay.
Yeah. And I think that's encouraging. I think it's across Canada too. I think they're all, in most of the markets, the cost of rents have gone down.
Can you think of any reason why?
Well, I think it's
other things are still going up.
Yeah, I think it's just a shift. So I think there's also, even though like our unemployment is still fairly consistent, we're usually around 6 or 7% unemployment. Because of our social safety net and all those things, like we're different. People say, oh, well, the US is at 4% or whatever. Well, they don't have the social safety net, right? Yeah, so there's a baked in unemployment, that is just naturally baked in because of your social safety net.
Yeah.
And, if you expect every single person to work and you count them, right? And some people have to work because there is no other choice. So they're doing whatever they're doing. So they count as employed. And that's what brings, the difference, the 2 or 3% difference between the US and Canada is just that social kind of safety net. But I think, there's a lot more housing coming on board. So that is
so maybe demand is changing or
supply. Yeah. And I think that, again, the yo-yo effect is here because I actually think we have enough houses. We just don't have enough affordable houses. So people can't afford the houses that we do have. And even building new ones, it's so expensive. So an existing house that's already built is way cheaper than taking the same amount of land and building a new house. Like it's twice as expensive.
That's kind of funny. I was thinking about that last week for whatever reason. Normally my brain doesn't think about housing, but I was thinking, don't we have enough houses? Really? They're not there for everyone.
Yeah.
But I think we have enough houses. I don't know why the talk to fix the houseless crisis, the housing affordability crisis is to build more houses. I wasn't sure if I was thinking about it correctly or not because I don't know any stats, but it feels like we must have enough housing for
we just don't have enough affordable housing. So the housing that we've got is, and is too expensive. So the rents are too expensive. And, when you look at building a new house, and the prime example for me when I think about it is it's to do with commercial real estate. So we had land up in Courtenay. Mm-hmm. So when we were going to build this building, and so switch it out with residential. So the costs are the same pretty much. So you're looking at building a residential apartment building. It doubled during COVID. So when you look at
material costs,
everything, labor, material doubled or tripled. Labor, didn't double obviously, but it went up, and also supply of labor. Like there just isn't enough people to actually build, right? So I do think we need to build affordable housing, however that looks. But what is affordable housing when land costs have doubled in the last 5 years? Construction costs have doubled, and so when we were building our building, we had it financed, we had the whole thing. So the scope of it went from the building was going to cost $2.5 to $3 million. Financing, no problem. BDC's financing, got it. Okay, so we now need to charge $25 a square foot. Okay, so we're up in Courtenay. What is the average rent up in Courtenay? Well, it's like $15 a square foot. Okay, so there's a gap, but that gap is still kind of within the threshold. It's a new building. It's going to have all the, state-of-the-art stuff. So it's not apples to apples compared to like a building that was built in the 60s or 50s or 70s or whatever. So, okay, you can justify that. 2 years into COVID, that building that could have been built for $3 million is now $5.5 million.
Wow.
Bank sold,
more.
We're going to finance it for you. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like you're going to give me money to build this building that was once $3 million, that's now $5.5 million. So now what do I have to charge myself or a customer who's going to rent it? So this would be the same in residential. Yeah. So now all of a sudden, where $3,000 for a 2-bedroom or $2,000 for a 2-bedroom rent may cover, it's now, you can barely cover it at $3,000, which is a 50% increase. Right. So for me, I would have had to charge myself $45 a square foot to cover the nut on the loan.
Way more than the average.
No, and I could just go 2 blocks away where we went and I'm paying $13, $14 a square foot. So that's the problem, right? It's an affordability problem. It's, that space is available. There's other space at that price, but am I going to build a building now that's going to cost 2.5 times what it would have cost prior? Like, and what changed? Like what changed?
And what makes you want to do?
You can't.
Pay more.
Well, I mean, if I was younger, I probably would have been the idiot that did it.
Maybe take a risk.
Well, you would have just said, "Oh, well, it'll all work out." But in the end of the day, you're paying twice as much. I can't charge those rents. So I'd be taking $5,000 to $7,000 to $8,000 a month out of my pocket to cover it in the worst case scenario. So if the building can't cover itself, why are you building it? So there's no incentive to build.
So you pulled out of that project?
I pulled out, and it cost me a lot of money because I had, $300K invested in the development.
That was already spent?
And then because we did all the planning and all the systems and we had our building permit approved, and then I had to pay a $60,000 break fee as well because I didn't go through with the loan. I'd secured the loan.
Right.
So imagine, and then they would say, well, we're prepared to give you the money. Yeah, you would have bankrupted me potentially, or way too, I couldn't understand why they were approving it. And then, but they were sure glad to take the $60K break fee.
That's how you build a bubble, I guess.
Yes. Well, this is what you talk about is the real estate bubble.
Yeah.
Right. And there is all these bubbles out there. There's the stock market bubble. Like people are, when you have these companies that are buying back their stock. So instead of you can distribute profits, you can reinvest in capital, you can do all this stuff. These companies, and this is the problem with it's a problem with capitalism, but it's also a problem with taxation. So we aren't taxing businesses enough, like profitable businesses. Obviously, giving businesses enough incentive to keep going and make sure you're not overtaxing them as they're growing and starting. But you've got these companies that are making billions of dollars. And they've got so much money, they literally are buying back their stock because they don't need to invest it to grow. They don't need, or they make that decision. And then as a CEO, they're incentivized because their salary is based on their stock price. Right. So they're buying back their stock. So if they buy back 10% of their stock, or 5% of the stock will go up 5 or 10% in value because now they've taken that stock off the market and they own it.
And then the CEOs that made that happen get
more
bonuses.
money, but then they're not investing in new growth. They're not investing in new employees. They're not investing in new equipment, which then goes to the greater economy. They're not being taxed.
The cost of their product to the general
consumer, exactly. Yeah. And they're just taking, and you're like, well, you can't blame them. It's the system or that. But at some point, you should start.
Yeah, I think you can blame them.
Yeah, you can blame them because you're like, okay, so the public coffers, we don't have enough money for healthcare. We don't have enough money for infrastructure. We don't have enough money to build out food security. We're at trade risk to tariffs from an unfriendly trading partner. And then what do you got to do? Okay, well, our war chest is empty because our taxation is wrong. Like we aren't taxing people. We used to tax people. The world used to tax people in a way more equitable way. And then as capitalism takes hold, and there's all these little side deals and, these lobbyists and, you need to carve this out. And then they say, well, we're going to do this if you do this. And the government's like, well, that makes sense. Yeah. And they're like, I will give you $1 million for your election campaign, or I'll give you $10,000 or $5,000 or whatever. And in Canada, it's a little bit better because, we have more oversight than the US, for example. Like in the United States, they've allowed corporations to be considered people. Right. So any person that's got a right, now the corporation has that right. So, Citizens United just open the door for unlimited funds to be going into supporting certain candidates without any accountability. So we're talking billions of dollars could go to support this initiative. And then the person that's gotten the money, or the party that's gotten the money, now has to pay that back.
Yeah, they're obligated.
Yeah. So they give them tax breaks. They give them all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, they justify it. Well, they're growing the economy. They're not. There's no accountability loop. There's no, okay, well, how many jobs did you create? What did you do with the money? And then they're also the first at the trough to get bailed out when things go sideways. And to a smaller extent, it does happen. It happens in Canada. And, you have all these people because we're convinced that we know the taxation and there's waste in government and all that kind of stuff. There's waste everywhere, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a fair tax system. So if I pay, 30 or 40% of what I earn, and a corporation pays, 15% of what they earn, how is that fair? But yet they try to justify it because, they're creating jobs. Are they creating jobs? Yes, they have jobs, but are they, do they have the social conscience to reinvest that money to add more jobs, add more investment, and build out? Or are they just taking that money and hoarding it? Right? They're taking the money and hoarding it.
They sure are.
So when they're buying back their stock, they're hoarding it. They're enriching themselves without any, and this money is government. A lot of it is government grants. So if they're going to expand and they're going to go, okay, the government's going to go, I'm going to give you a tax break for 10 years on the land. So you build out that land, and then I'm going to give you an incentive to build out this, and we're going to give you this rebate and that rebate and all that kind of stuff. Then what they do is they take that, so they build that new wing of whatever, that new plant or that new whatever, but it's been partially funded by government grants, taxpayer dollars. Mm-hmm. So then once they get it built out, efficiency and all that, then they're just free on their own to do whatever the hell they want. So there's no loop. Well, what's the economic value to the citizenry? Like, how are the people that have funded it, or how are they benefiting from it? And they're not. Mm-hmm. But yet, as a person, maybe making 30, 40 or 50K a year, they're paying 20% of their salary, 25%. When you look at that number and you go, oh, well, that equals $15,000. Well, this billionaire paid, $50 million in taxes.
It's like, but
it equals like thing. 3 or 4% of what they've earned.
Yeah, if you got billions, then of course you're going to talk small potato millions.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and the thing about it is that they, because I had this discussion with a friend of mine. It's like, well, so-and-so paid $100 million in taxes. Okay. So they paid $100 million in taxes, but what did they make? Like, how much did they went from 200 billion to 400 billion, their net worth doubled.
You can't count that high.
So that'd be like me paying $10 in taxes equivalent. Right. You know what I mean? Or $100 in taxes equivalent.
Yeah.
So how is that
a weird spread?
Yeah, and how is that fair? Because the other thing too is once that money is removed from the system, so people that are very, very, very wealthy, and we're talking about extreme wealth here, but it trickles all the way down through the levels, right? We have way more billionaires than we had millionaires, 30 years ago. Right. And that to me is like, yeah, that's the way it should be, blah, blah, blah. But you as people, we get pulled and gaslit to defend these billionaires and justify the fact that they've got that money and not go, wait a minute, these people aren't paying, because there's only so much money around that needs to be taxed in order to pay for what we've got. And the services and all of the community amenities are way less than they were 30 or 40 years ago when we actually had proper taxation. And there were still millionaires, there were still billionaires, the odd billionaire, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. They still have more money than they could ever spend in 10 lifetimes, or their kids can spend in 10 lifetimes. But why are you not taxing them correctly? Right? Like we should have abundance.
I think we do have we do have abundance,
but it's going to a certain, it's being hoarded, right? And that is really a failure of us. And you can talk to the government, but we are the government. We vote them in. We decide what happens. We also can use our dollars to support them. So when you use Amazon, for example, and you're buying and supporting from Amazon, what is that dollar doing versus going down to your local store where the money stays in the economy? That person down the store is paying for their employees. They're paying for their property taxes. They're paying, for their own food locally and whatever's building out in their community. You order from Amazon. That money is just going into a pocket, and you've now supporting a yacht. You're supporting, people to be working for like minimum wage. People having to work like Walmart is the biggest Walmart employees are the biggest group of people that get social assistance from the United States government, for example. So
they're the biggest group. So
they have more people. Like SNAP is how they support people. So it's a supplemental benefit, $200 or $300 a month, so it helps pay for their food. And it's a card where you can only buy food. Walmart employees are the number one recipients of the SNAP benefits.
More than
any other group.
The vets.
Yeah.
Or like those are the groups you're talking about?
All of it. So they basically have, and you're talking about people that are working full time that, and some of them need multiple jobs. And then Walmart is making billions of dollars in profit.
Yeah.
How does anybody reconcile that? And then, I'm frustrated. I can't do that. It's like, okay, well, stop supporting Walmart or stop buying there. Amazon.
But then people will say, well, that's all I can afford. It's like, it's all you can afford because of the Walmarts and Amazons.
It's a trap.
They've created that.
Yeah. And that's the trap that you fall into. So there needs to be like a structural shift and change. And part of it, it's either going to happen by choice or it's going to happen by result of what's going on. Like you end up in the same spot. So if these people that are trying to, enrich themselves will end up destroying, the goose that's laying the golden egg because it's unsustainable. The amount of debt that people have, that countries have. And one of the things that when you look at the globe and how all the economy goes, and we just had a budget that was passed, and I like, without getting into the details of our federal budget, the fact that they shifted it to the fall when most other companies and most other people are doing their budgets rather than the spring, because now you can align, if you need government support or you need subsidies or you got to know where the government's going to be spending money. So let's say you have a construction company and there's some projects that are coming out. If you're doing your budget and you're planning in the fall and the government is doing their budgeting and planning in the spring, these projects are now a year away and you can't even put them in your budget. You can't forecast them. You can't bid on them. You can't do any of that kind of stuff until the spring. But then now you're already halfway through your fiscal year. And that alignment shift is a really good thing. Okay. And then also investing in there's military, so there's all this stuff where Trump is like, you've got to support 2% or whatever the 3% of your GDP.
Are we doing 5 in the next couple of years?
I think to make up for the shortfall. But I know, but the thing about the beauty of it is like the U.S. does this because then to satisfy it, you're going to buy U.S. military equipment.
We're talking about buying Swedish planes all of a sudden.
Exactly, but having them built in our country. Yeah. And they put $1 billion in wages. So all of that goes to that number. But how it impacts our economy. So this is how the government makes decisions that can actually help billionaires or help the people. So putting $1 billion in, this is just one example, putting $1 billion into military wages, that goes into the communities that those people live in. Right. So then that bolsters the economy there. You take that money and buy like a plane, or you send it to Lockheed Martin in the US, that money stays in the freaking US, right? And we don't see that plane, like the plane flying around, whatever, like we don't get any benefit from it. But you put $1 billion into wages, all of a sudden now you're supporting, and the same idea goes in education, right? So these investments, so that investment is going to pay a dividend way greater than if you buy a piece of equipment that depreciates, that it just flies around and, doesn't really produce anything other than, you can tick a box and say, yeah, we've got 15 jets or a battleship or whatever. But, when you put money into wages, that actually goes to the community that those wages are going. So look at education. So why are you not paying your teachers well enough? Why can't, and then you create an incentive to have really good teachers. So one of the things that they argue, the companies argue, we need to pay the CEO, $10 million, right? The reason why they got to pay the CEO $10 million is because if you don't pay them $10 million, somebody else is going to pay them $10 million. So you need to attract talent. So if you want to attract talent, so if you want your kids to be educated well, if you want to have those teachers that are like, man, that person really impacted my life. And I think everybody, like, especially, I mean, I know a few teachers that I still think about that impacted my life, that, were just special people. How many special people do we get now when a teacher needs to have a second job, or that they're having to fund their own school supplies?
Right.
Like, where are the priorities we're just backwards, right? And again, it goes back to that book, The 10 Best Things First, like that I talked about before. And you look at the economic return, and even healthcare. It's like, okay, all the money is spit around there. So you've got policing, you've got healthcare, you've got, all these different, social services, and you've got all these things that intersect, but they're all separate budgets and separate pools, and none of them are funded correctly.
No.
But then you've got the impact in the community where you have people living on the street. You have, people that are zombies, basically. You've got an opioid crisis. You've got 200 or 300 people in British Columbia a month dying from drug overdose. So would you, just put up your hands? Well, the justice system, it isn't, it's all of it. But if you actually fund, the healthcare system, all of a sudden now you don't have all these other stuff that you're paying 3, 4, 5 times more to do it.
Right. But because they're not connected, if you fix the healthcare problem, that doesn't mean that the police budget's going to change necessarily, right? I mean, it should. It's
about use of dollars and efficiency of it. And it should. It should change.
Yeah.
There should be less requirement for it. I mean, you've got a militarization of your police force. So how much does that cost? When you literally, and then what kind of community are you living in, where you've got, during, I think it was, the Remembrance Day, you've got Victoria police officers with M16s
and flap jackets, and fatigues,
and you're like, okay, what's going on here? And literally what you've got is a community with people living on the street, and they're only there because there isn't proper mental health. There isn't, healthcare is not funded properly. The police, are coming in heavy versus, they're dealing with stuff where they actually need to be counselors, perhaps.
And
right?
they're not
trained, nor should they be.
No, of course they shouldn't be.
So if you make the investment, and this is the thing, is like, people go, where are we going to pay? How are we going to pay for it? It pays for itself. You just can't look at it in a 4-year cycle. You look at it in a 10, 15, 20-year cycle. And with the communities that are investing well there's where you want to live in 20 years,
right.
And the best we've ever been is when we invested in social housing. Canada had the best social housing, that in the world. And it was a model for other countries. And even the US wanted to use our model. And, in the 80s, we just abandoned it. And then we're like, whoa, how did we get here? Bro, go back to the beginning, right?
Yeah, a big wave of conservatism in the 80s.
Well, and the interest rates.
The economic damage that caused.
Yeah. And it just priorities shifting.
But that kind of felt global. That was like Thatcher, Reagan,
Mulroney, all of that. And, it was also, sure, then when it shifted more left, they didn't prioritize it properly either. So it's one thing, you can blame, okay, it's the conservatives or whatever, but it's literally just everybody's complicit, because once things shift, it's so hard to get it back, and this is where I talk about the deconstruction of stuff. And literally, I'm convinced that there's a group of people, and it's a criminal. It's criminal because what they're doing is they've already done all the crime that they can do in public. Sorry, in the community.
Yeah.
Now they need to, where they're really going to get is from the government, where they're going to get into these government. It's kind of like the oligarchy, in Russia. Right.
And the U.S.
Yeah. And U.S. Well, exactly. Yeah. But it's more evolved outwardly because they literally, it's a criminal organization. That's, Putin basically takes a percentage of everything that happens in that country. And he's decided who's going to benefit from it. Who's going to own this oil company? Who's going to own this gas company? Who's going to own this transportation company and this rail and all that kind of stuff? And you pay Putin a vig, right? So that is what is going on in the United States right now, is the oligarchy is taking over. And you can argue they've been there, but it's happened over the last 30, 40 years, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 1 year, even more so, where they're literally robbing, look at Elon Musk. He gets billions of dollars in subsidies and there's no oversight because he's the oversight.
And
now.
he just became a trillionaire or something.
He's going to be the first guy to be a trillionaire.
It's like what are you doing? Why do you need any subsidies from taxpayers who need SNAP grocery cards, right?
Exactly. And, in a smaller scale, that same stuff happens in our country.
It kind of feels like the oligarchy that we see now, which are individuals and they're billionaires, in the last couple of decades, it felt like they were corporations, like the faceless kind of corporations that were behind things, like the Raytheons, all the Boeings, the Apples, all those. And now it's becoming maybe more transparent. You're seeing the people behind them, and now it looks like an oligarchy, even though we've already had it, but they just weren't personalized. They were just a corporation.
Yeah, it was some big, and you talk about the deep state and this hidden thing. It's not literally. It's just basically criminals doing crime, but now they're infesting the government. So now it's changing, tax policy, and it's changing how we as a group of citizens can live and fund what we're trying to do. And they're basically this whole trickle down. You're trickling down the tax burden, right? You're not trickling down any economic benefit.
You're not giving us any money.
No. Well, when you look at where wage growth has gone in the last, 30 years, and the cost of living, the cost of living has far outpaced the wage growth. But yet, if you look at the top, it's just gotten richer and richer and richer. Once that money is in their pockets, do you know how hard it is to get it out?
They go
to war, and now they're worth more than countries.
Yeah,
think about it. So back in the day when Standard Oil was in the DOJ, and I do a lot of the U.S. centric stuff just because the issue is growing in our country, but the examples are best illustrated in the States.
It's more clear and overt.
100%. So when Standard Oil is around, Standard Oil own the transportation, they own the rail yard, they own all this stuff. There's and I think at the time when they broke up Standard Oil, it was worth $100 million.
And that was a long time ago, right?
Yeah, we're talking late 1800s, early 1900s. So then it was broken into Exxon and all the it was broken into 5 different
Shell and all those.
It was broken into 5 different components. So now all of a sudden you've got 5 companies worth 20 billion each or whatever. Maybe it was 100 billion that it was worth. Now you've got $1 trillion companies. If you put it back to what the money value relative, they're allowing companies to grow way bigger than they can control, and they've got more money that can be used negatively. They can, create their own, army.
Yeah. Their own security force.
And then people are, it's basically servitude, and I think the problem now is that they're out of control. And how is government going to the only way you can do it is by, creating laws in order to stop it.
And it doesn't feel like there's that appetite at the top, obviously. There's an appetite for that kind of change with ordinary folk. But politicians and the people who are actually influential and are able to make those changes to stop this, that they don't feel very incentivized.
No, and the problem with it is and they keep moving the needle. So if the person, if I'm for the people and I'm there, you get into power and you're like, as soon as you move the needle a little bit more, okay, well, he took that, or this is the way it is. Okay, I'll take that. And all of a sudden you just get further and further away from what is good. Yeah. Like you stop seeing the good, and, it's like power corrupts, and, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that is the problem. And there needs to be a shift in a way that, and again, what I was beginning to say is it's going to happen anyways, because it's not sustainable. So, and it goes in cycles. So we're kind of where we were when the Great Depression happened. Right. In the period, there's a rise in fascism. There was, tariffs and control and all this stuff. This does not work. So what ends up happening is it just gets destroyed, and then it gets rebuilt, and there's a period of peace and prosperity and all that stuff. So that will happen again, but it's got to get destroyed first.
And
right?
Before the Depression, and as we're leading into that, was the economy destroyed naturally because of the actions that were happening, or was it purposely collapsed at that time? And I kind of ask that because we need to learn from our mistakes from the past. And coming into this economic uncertainty, I've heard a couple people talking about like purposely collapsing parts of the economy, just to shrink it down. But
it's not in a way.
Have we ever done that before?
It's a byproduct of human conditioning and human nature. So, in the early, like pre Great Depression, so companies and the stock market and people were allowed to do, relatively speaking, whatever the hell they wanted. So regulation wasn't holding them account. They just outgrew their britches, and nobody was controlling it. And nobody was like saying, okay, this needs to happen or that needs to happen. And it resulted in a global collapse. So people forget. And just like you say, history repeats itself if you forget it. Sure. And everybody forgets it, because as soon as you imagine people that went and served in World War II, when the people that survived and they came back, they were the young people. They were the leaders of that next group. So they were the congressmen and the premiers and all the counselors in the city, all that kind of stuff. And they're like, never again. Okay, so they were doing things to actually make things better because they had that experience, that recent experience of how bad it was. And you see the world collapse, and they're like, we're going to build it back. And they did. There's proper taxation, and we got healthcare system out of it, and all these social benefits in Canada that really moved the needle on the quality of life for us. That was originated and generated from people that had experienced World War II in our life.
Right.
As you get further and further away from that, people are like, oh, well, let's just do this, or well, this will work because that'll benefit me or it'll benefit us. And then you just end up in the same spot as you did, because people forget of what you changed and what it's like Germany, you can't go into Germany without being exposed to the Holocaust and the living memory of what happened there, because they will never allow that to happen again.
They will never let anyone forget.
That's right. So if you're a neo-Nazi in Germany, you don't have the same liberties and same freedom to institute that, because it is illegal to do that, because they remember how that affected it, right? So they've made permanent change in that one example, right? So the odds of that environment being created again, they've done their work to try to prevent that. Not to say that some other new bad thing can't happen, but they've entrenched it in their culture. So, and that's a permanent thing. Slavery, they've never dealt with it. It was never dealt with. It just shifted. Right. So basically they still, the systemic issues with slavery and all of that stuff are there. Now it's a prison system. Right.
Yeah, it sure is.
And they literally never did anything there's been no acknowledgement. And the same thing in Canada. with we've done, or what the colonizers did to the indigenous. Like we've done a little bit of a job there, but it's not even close to what we need to do. And people go, oh, well, blah, blah, everybody just assimilate. Blah, blah. No, there needs to be accountability. There needs to be recognition of how we got here so that you don't repeat it.
And so you can make that whole again. You got to
you've got to have restitution. You've got to have, okay, let's work this through. The recent Supreme Court decision in BC over land, and it's not for the Indigenous people. It's about reconciliation, and it's not about them wanting to take all the land, right? It's about an acknowledgement of where the land came from and how it was acquired, and then who's profited from it. Like the U.S. is the way the U.S. is because it started as a slave nation. So all those people that earned all the money on the backs of slaves created the wealth that people are living on today.
Well, and you're right. It hasn't.
But there's no
changed.
reconciliation.
Yeah.
No, there's not even an acknowledgement. And this is what's going on now is basically as a result of that, because they've never acknowledged it. They've never dealt with it. They've never addressed it. Mm-hmm. And here they are. Right. And for us in a smaller degree, it's the same idea. Like we're connected to, the British monarchy still, even though it's not an active part of our thing. But there's a lot of things that happen that we need to address in order to be able to truly build a country and a society that, is inclusive of everybody. But you can't do it as long as you're benefiting and using the rewards of basically a genocide, right? And it's like we're kind of getting into an area that is obviously controversial, but I just think until you have addressed those things properly, and they're like, well, I wasn't there, I didn't do it. It's not about that. It's not even about necessarily about a transfer of wealth. It's about an acknowledgement, and it's about making small changes that can repair the damage, and also, cut out the systemic issues, like the incarceration rate, the, drug and alcohol, the lack of economic, prosperity. You're putting, in our country, you put Indigenous on land that is basically so far removed from any economy or any group of people that could actually support it,
and anything culturally significant for them too sometimes.
100%, right? Because you're not allowing them to live the way they've lived, and there's a lot of things we can learn. I know on the when an Indigenous community supports the people that are if you've got an opioid problem, or the Indigenous way is the way. If you're Indigenous, you're going to benefit way more by the therapy and the treatments that are Indigenous.
Yeah, you got healing circles.
Yeah,
and support.
But you're like, oh no, you're going to do it this way because different populations respond to different things.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So if you remove the cultural sensitivity of it, you actually will inhibit the benefit of that person, recovery. Right. But if you do it in their culturally sensitive way, and you involve the people that understand the history, and you tie that in, they have way more success. And when you look at the prison system, where 40% of the prison population is Indigenous, right? But they only make up 5 to 7% of the population. There's a problem, and they're like, oh, okay, well, is it like it's systemic, right?
And they're not just prisoners in the U.S. either. They're slaves.
Yeah.
They're making all the military gear.
Yeah.
Like every helmet in the U.S. is made in a prison.
Yeah.
Every helmet.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, and then we take that whole notion of how we've changed slavery into the prison systems, et cetera, but we're also we outsource a lot of work to third world countries, and that's a form of slavery as well. Because there's corporations who make all their money on the backs of people who aren't getting paid fairly or at all sometimes.
Yeah.
And Like, so it just keeps on happening until we break it all.
Well, and the thing about it is,
if we do that, everything's.
But it's choices. It's individual choices. So don't buy. Like for me, I don't shop at Walmart. I get why people do, and I don't judge them. But if you're going to be, so there, Walmart is kind of like a difficult example. Amazon is not very quit supporting Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. Like just cut it out. Like he's doing nothing for the world. Like he literally isn't, but the convenience of it. So we have choices. So as soon as you like Tesla, for example, people went up and Tesla sales dropped 30%.
Yeah.
So guess what? He's now taking a step back and maybe not meddling with the freaking country, doing all these freaking stupid stuff that he was doing. Right. Like we have control over all of it. But you just have to make a decision that this is not what I'm going to support. And you know what's going to come in its place? It's going to come something better, and force them to do that. You know what? If they're seeing, the biggest fear that billionaires have is that their money's going to stop flowing. So how's it going to stop flowing? It's you stop supporting it. And then all of a sudden now they're going to switch. You'll be surprised. Oh yeah, I'm going to start a foundation and I'm going to do this and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Now you're going to actually make the world better. Yeah. We're only on this planet for 80 years, man.
Right. Take your money and do something positive.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not, and you can't live forever. Like, what are you going to do with all this money?
Pass on your kids for some kind of legacy, or like it doesn't even make sense.
Well, the legacy is ruined too, because you see the byproduct. Like we're not living in a vacuum here. So everything has already happened once already. So we're in an environment that's already been here, but we're not paying attention to it. Right. We're, the rise in fascism, all the brown and black people are bad, and, like the poor are bad. And like, it's just like, what are you talking about? They're criminalizing poverty, which is like, and, they're denying, the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need shelter, you need, employment, you need healthcare. Those are should be basic human rights. Yeah, right.
We should all have,
and they're human rights in Canada, right? But they need to be human rights everywhere. And then the other thing that happens is that you then, you've got these poor nations that are basically doing a lot of the slave labor for these corporations for pennies on the dollar. And then we're saying, okay, yeah, but you can't get this because you're doing this. So we keep them in poverty by not giving them the technology, right? So it even comes with the climate stuff. So we're like, okay, yeah, we've benefited from oil and gas. Mm-hmm. Like that's how we've built what we've built on the backs of that. But yet now, okay, you guys need green energy, and you don't have that. Okay,
if we're going to use oil and gas, we're going to tax you now.
Yeah, and you just can't, because we're destroying the infrastructure that made us prosperous. And because we're prosperous, we can afford to pivot, but yet you can't.
Right.
Like these people are still burning garbage for heat in some of these countries.
Sure.
Right.
And those are the same countries that give us our coffee, our chocolate, our
luxuries,
our chemicals and minerals for batteries.
Yeah.
And I mean, so these companies are not like take Walmart again as an example. Yeah. They're buying their products from the cheapest sources they can, which are going to be offshore and made by people who are not getting treated well. And at the same time, not only are they making their money there, but then in their own stores, they're not paying their people well. They're double dipping on the slavery almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's gross.
And the thing about it is it's like, and this is why, again, we are lucky to live in Canada because we have a social safety net. The reason why we have a good standard of living is because of that social safety net. Mm-hmm. So when you look at other countries that don't have that, and U.S. is the most direct one that's right there. I mean, look at Europe. They have a social safety net too. And I would much rather live in Europe than live in the United States for that reason. Because if the people who are in the bottom socioeconomic tier, they spend all their money. You give them more money and you create an environment where they can make more money, they're going to spend more money, which is going to actually enhance the economy more. And if the money trickles down from trickles around in the loop, a circular loop, where they're actually supporting the Amazons and all these people because they actually have money to do it. And the Amazons are paying them well enough to live. Everybody's going to benefit. They're going to benefit too. Maybe they're not going to be $1 trillion company, but guess what? Maybe they don't need 1,000 lifetimes of money today, right? Maybe they don't need that. Maybe they can do it with 100 lifetimes of money.
All they need is one lifetime.
They only need one time.
And if they're greedy, they get 1.5 lifetimes.
Well, and just how much better is everybody? Like, there's enough money, just like we have enough houses. We have enough money.
Yeah.
This is not the problem. The problem is that it's being hoarded.
There's enough food.
There's enough food.
Clean water.
All of it. We have all of it.
Houses.
We have an abundance.
Yeah.
There should be a moral obligation, right? And, I think as a society, we need to make those choices for ourselves. And I think we're lucky again because Canada has done that, and it's by far not perfect. Mm-hmm. But it's an example of what is possible. And if you give money to people that need money, or that are, if you can level the playing field, where, if you are an Indigenous person living in the Nisga'a Valley and you literally are 100 miles from any economic benefit, but yet that's where you live because that's where, the government has said, this is your land. Mm-hmm. There you go. And, and then you're judged because you don't pay taxes and all this kind of stuff. But yet you have that's not a spot where you're actually going to be able to prosper. Then you got to move from your community, and Indigenous people are very family. They're connected to the family. They're connected to the land. This is a part of who they are. And now you're putting them into a city. So, and then you're wondering why they don't have the economic prosperity. Right. So correct that, fix it, give them the prosperity. And again, even on the environmental thing, and it's always mixed when I talk about this stuff, but you're literally putting, in the north, they put a pipeline through Indigenous land, but they aren't sharing equitably the economic benefit of that. But then people are like, well, let's not do that. And they're like, okay, we're trying to get, obviously we need to be conscious of the environment, but we're trying to get energy to countries that don't have energy, which will benefit them long term, will benefit us, shorter term. Mm-hmm. But what about the people that are living in those territories where those pipelines through? Like, you're now denying them an economic benefit.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? So you're protesting this, but why not share in it? Right. And allow the benefit.
Well, like we keep saying, there's plenty of it to go around.
Yeah, there is plenty of it to go around. There's also, it's just about perspective and the privilege of making some of these decisions. And I know, we need to get off fossil fuels, 100%, no question about it. But what we need to do when we're doing the clean energy and all that, we need to involve all the stakeholders, right? So that everybody can prosper, which is then going to make everybody better. Our community is going to be better. We're going to have more money to spend. The people that spend all their money are going to have the money to spend all of it, right? Which is then going to keep the economy going and stop the hoarding. Right. And just check our privilege, man.
It kind of feels like such a global issue, and the ability to trust a group or an individual to handle that redistribution might be a real challenge. Like,
what's going to happen anyways, because the whole system is going to get destroyed.
Right. But wouldn't it be better if we could control that collapse? But like, who do we trust to do that anymore? They've kind of taken all the trust I had in politicians away decades ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who's qualified to do that. Is it the UN? Is it individual countries that band together and decide?
Well, I think it's individuals making different decisions, because you are going to motivate the people that really control it to do it if you stop supporting them. Right. So you look at supporting politicians or whatever, like, just put your money where people are actually doing good work. Right. You look at Patagonia, for example. They invest tons of money and give tons of money back. So guess what? Support them versus supporting Amazon, right? Like just think about where your money's going and then just direct it differently. And literally that's what you can make you, and will it change overnight? No. But will you start seeing it differently? Yeah. And then make sure you're voting for politicians that are going to correct what has been broken as far as the taxation and who's being taxed and cut those freaking loopholes where, you know, everybody should be paying the same amount of their income. And if I make $1 million, I should be paying, you know, 30 or 40%, whatever it is. Yeah. And if somebody's making 50K and they're paying 20%, like that is equitable.
That's more equitable for sure. Yeah.
And guess what's going to happen? Then all of a sudden we got enough money for healthcare. We got enough money for roads. We got enough money for teachers. We got enough money for justice. We have enough money, you know, for all these things. And we have the money that we can actually invest that's going to better the community versus enriching these jerks that, you know, can't get enough money.
So if the power is in the people to make these changes happen with their wallets, with their votes, with their conversations, these kinds of conversations need to spread wide and far
and quick.
And I truly believe that's happening, and I think it's being pushed even quicker by all the mistakes we're seeing politicians make and all the upset that there is right now. I think it's really changing the tone of people's conversations.
Well, and it should. And, you know, there should be justice for all. You look at what's going on down in the States with, you know, the Epstein files and all this kind of stuff. Is like, there is like corruption staring at you in the face. Just address it. Like whoever's done it, call them out. Let's go. Let's, you know, and this is what I talk about, reconciliation. Like you can't, until you come to terms with what's happened, you're never moving past it. And the people that are doing it are the ones that got us here.
And so they're still doing it.
They're still doing it.
Yeah.
And they're getting away with it. So just make them accountable. Make Jeff Bezos accountable to how much he's paying his staff and what he's doing with his billions. Right? Make him accountable. And you make him accountable by stop supporting it until he smartens up. The politician that's out there abusing children and stealing from, you know, his constituents and taking bribes from Saudi Arabia, make him accountable. Yeah. Stop supporting him. Kick him out.
I think we're so accustomed to having like an authority figure take care of that on our behalf, like the government, like the police, like the army. Like we're so accustomed to someone else making sure that that's not happening, and they're not doing their job. So it's going to be a real change in how we think about things.
What it takes is courage.
Right.
So individually, let's have the courage individually to make those decisions. And then let's hold the people that are in those positions. Let's get them out and get people in there that can get back to being accountable to make sure that they are actually doing their job. And when you think about the steady slide, it's literally the exact thing. It's people that were supposed to be in charge of it stop doing their job. And it starts with, I hate to say it, but it starts with reporters, investigative journalism. And this is how democracies are protected, is by actually, you know, now instead of these fluff freaking pieces and this equalization of, oh, well, this person, I got to make it equal. Because no, there's certain people that are doing bad things. Call it out, investigate it, and let's shine the light, right? Democracy dies in darkness. Washington Post BS. Now Washington Post is actively keeping it dark so they can rob people. Right. And not have all their stuff exposed, get it exposed, you know, but I fear that it's going to have to crumble before it rebuilds. And I'm very hopeful. And this is why, because I just believe in the cycle that we will get to the other side of this.
Yeah.
I just hope and wish that the depth of what will happen to get us there won't be horrific like it's been in the past.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't cost people's lives. It just maybe cost economic damage.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to
everyone.
be cost all those things, and but as our community, let's just deal with what we can deal with, which is in our backyard, is making sure that we have enough food, we have enough will to support everybody in the community, and that we understand what the intent of it is, that we can protect ourselves from what will happen in order for us to get to the other side of it. Yeah. Because this is not sustainable.
Start thinking about the circular economy.
Exactly.
In your very small locale, wherever
and keeping your money in your community and supporting the people that are here. And if every community does that and makes that a priority, then you're going to see the change. Mm-hmm. Like, we're in control of all of it. The idea that we're not is an excuse not to do something. So we have dollars. We have choices. Let's make those choices differently. And you can see the effect of it. It changes quick when you shut off the tap.
And the fact that we think we don't have power, that's a narrative that we've been told forever,
exactly. Because if they think we don't have power, then we're not going to do something. So then that's just going to keep status quo and allow them to do whatever the hell they want. So we do have the power. We control all of it. The reason why Apple is so doing so well is because we buy Apple products and they've integrated and they've done it. But guess what? You know what? No, I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to go support somebody that's doing something good, right? And let's start there and then see what happens, because you're going to see the change and the tone changing.
My next phone is going to be a pager.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to writing letters.
Yeah, maybe taking us back.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I think we're so dependent on technology created by these huge companies.
Oh, it's insane.
They got us all wrapped around their little fingers.
Yeah, but let's go local. Yeah. Let's just support each other and support our community, and then you watch, you'd see how things will change.
Right on. Well, I'm prepared to go out for lunch somewhere local.
I like it.
Yeah. Actually, it is lunchtime.
It is lunchtime.
Let's get on it.
Sam, I love you.
Love you too, man. And
it's so nice we have one of these things every once in a while where we're just out there shouting at the world.
And I appreciate you taking the lion's share of the vocals today, because I slogged through the few words I did say, I think, today.
You handled yourself well.
Thank you.
And I love you. Remember
and your posture is looking great for someone.
Yeah, my back has been out for the last 10 days, and I'm back. Aging is
gracefully as you are.
Yeah, graceful. Talk to my wife. I haven't been that graceful lying on the couch. No ringing bells.
No bell ringing?
No bell ringing.
No, I guess that wouldn't go over so well with it.
No. No.
All right. Well, until next week when we have a guest.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Until next week, have a wonderful time. Be real nice, everyone.
Remember to be kind.
I will.
Cheers.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, Bunny's Kitchen, Buzz Coffee House, Eagle-Ite, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Eva Schnitzel House, Farmsgate Foods and Catering, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Nikkei Ramen Ya, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Keating Pizza, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, The Nimble Bar Company, Ruth and Dean, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, Spoon's Diner, Truffles-inspired catering, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.